Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Life of a Business Manager podcast. This is the podcast where we break down the real world skills every business manager needs to succeed. I'm your host, Syna Chan, and today's episode, we're talking about one of the most underestimated topic, but important part of my job as a business manager. And I'm hoping it's important for anyone else listening out there. It's how to build strong relationships with vendors and external partners. This is a great episode for anyone listening out there or aspiring business managers, because building any type of work relationship and networking can help you succeed as a business manager, but also as a person in this corporate world. Whether you're in the healthcare industry, retail, manufacturing, or the service industry, your vendors impact your daily success. They supply the equipment, the technology, materials, even the people sometimes if you need it. You don't have to be the best negotiator to build a relationship with your vendors. It's all about communication, active listening, and being genuine. A good vendor relationship can mean faster problem solving for you, better pricing for the organization that you work for, and more flexibility. When you have a bad vendor relationship, this can cause major delays for you, finger pointing, and honestly, just lots of stress. So it's just not healthy to have a bad relationship with your vendors. So let's break down on how to build real, reliable vendor relationships that make your operation strong. Okay, everyone, let's get started with segment 1, which is why building vendor relationship is important to your role as a business manager. If you're a business manager out there or have worked with vendors in your role, you've probably experienced having shipments arrive late, a sales rep going silent on you, which I would actually call ghosting at this point, or you've dealt with some contract misfires. And by this point, you already know this, but working with any external partners can make or break your operations. When I stepped into this role, I was dealing with vendors rather quickly. I remember my colleague at the time mentioned to me not to speak with any vendors and do not meet up with them at all. And as I adjusted to the role as a business manager, I quickly realized that I needed them as much as they needed me in order to do my job. The thing is, because I support the financials and the operations, I feel that we needed each other to do our job and continue to support the organization. One thing to note is vendor relationships aren't just about contracts and costs. They're about collaborations, trust, and communication. For anyone listening to this episode, think of your vendor relationships like this. You're not just managing a vendor, you're actually managing an extension of the areas that you support within the organization. When you treat them right, things will improve. Here are a few benefits of why it's great to have good vendor relationships at work. The first one is faster turnaround time. This is important because when you have unexpected emergencies, who do you call to help you when you're a business manager and you're dealing with an equipment failure or you need a loaner? You call your vendor. So it's good to have that good working relationship where you feel comfortable to call them so you're able to deliver on the request. The second benefit is vendor willingness to customize or accommodate to your needs. If you have that good vendor relationship, they're willing to work with you. So they can be flexible, they will customize whatever quote that you need customized, the service agreements, they'll bring in a loaner. What you need from the vendor, they will provide if you have that good working relationship. The third benefit is priority treatment when resources and costs are tight. It is easier to negotiate with a vendor that is willing to work with you. So if you have budgetary constraints and you only have a certain dollar amount to meet or spend, it's easier to work with the vendor that's willing to work with you. So I would say highly recommend just keeping your vendors, in line and make sure that you have that good working relationship. The fourth is more transparency about risks or delays in shipment. This is so important because there has been times where I've worked with vendors in the past and they would get the PO and then I wouldn't hear from them at all. So I wouldn't hear about if there's any delays in the shipment. I wouldn't hear about tracking, none of that. So I have had vendors in the past that I've done that. But then there are the good vendors that I have a good working relationship with where literally the customer service is still provided even after they receive the PO. So they will provide me an update on the shipment, when it's actually getting checked by Biomed, when do we need to actually bring the equipment in, and when everything is completed, like the implementation of the equipment is completed. The fifth is alternative solutions such as loaners. The reason why I put this in here is because your vendors can help you find equipment if you need it right away. For example, in the past, there was one time where I needed an equipment on site. They didn't have any to ship right away. And so they actually went and found it through other organizations that were using that same equipment. So they actually brought it to me or to the department, and then was able to move forward with the request. One key benefit to a great vendor relationship is you actually increase your network for your future. So I'm a firm believer that you never know when you need someone. It's never good to burn any bridges. So when you know a certain vendor, you can always keep that good working relationship. Maybe they can refer you in the future as well. You just never know when you need someone. So just remember that in the back of your head. To close out segment 1, as a reminder, all of these benefits can lead to smoother operations and fewer fire drills. From my experience, there's been so many times where a vendor have saved my day, and I was just so grateful for the work relationship that we have. It just makes your requests easier to solve when you have a reliable resource and you have someone that's willing to help you. Now let's talk about segment 2, which is 5 practical ways to build strong vendor relationships. Let me walk you through the 5 ways, strategies, however you want to think about it, to keep your vendor partnership strong and productive. Let's get started with number 1. So the first one is set clear expectations early with your vendor. I've been a business manager for some time now, so I like to think that I can read a vendor from the first initial meeting, if it's going to work out or not. Although I have had some surprises in the past with some vendors, good and bad. For example, one process that we use is we use requisitions and purchase orders. So make sure to explain that process clearly, because every organization has a different process, and every vendor that's going to all these different organizations will get confused. So you just want to set your clear expectations early with the vendor, how you work, how things work within the organization, and just have a mutual understanding of what actually a successful partnership looks like with the vendor. Some of the ways to set clear expectations early with the vendors are to talk about the response time expectations, communication preferences such as emails, calls, texts, status update, escalation paths, such as weekly or monthly meetings, and customer service levels. The reason why I put customer service level is because the customer service is the most important part when you're dealing with a vendor. If they do not provide you great customer service, that is one that you don't want to work with. The second is to communicate like a partner and not a customer. When you're working with a vendor, the key factor is to have good communication. It should be a partnership and not like a car salesperson. Now, from my experience working with lots of vendors, I have had the car salesperson, and typically I try to avoid those ones because I prefer to work with honest, genuine vendors. If you're a new business manager, it will be a little bit challenging to kind of weed out all of the salesy vendors, but you might catch up early as well. So you might have to test out some questions, go through some scenarios, some purchase orders before you can actually start getting some good vendors out there. Too often, managers treat vendors like outsiders, but the best approach is to be collaborative. So here are some examples of what you could say to a vendor in order to start building a partnership relationship at work. Some statements to ask: here's what I'm seeing on my end. How does that fit with your company? What do you need from us to hit this timeline? We're in this together. Let's solve it side by side. Can we work on a resolution together? Is there something you need from me to move this forward? For anyone listening out there, the one thing that I've learned and live by is to always respect the vendor, but this goes both ways. The third is to always stay consistent, but be flexible. Here's an example of what I've experienced in the past, which is having the vendors I work with be flexible with pricing and adjusting to our capital budget. As some of you might know, every fiscal year, there is an approved capital budget to use for all departments. When funds are tight, I try to work out some sort of deal with the vendors on equipment I need, if it means reducing the quantity or removing certain line items. The vendors I currently work with are very flexible and adaptable to my requests. Here are some things to be consistent with: your deadlines on delivery of the request and your needs, Your tone to the vendor. Are you respectful? How is the tone of your email? Your follow up and response. Make sure to have a response time. Just remember, flexibility builds loyalty later in the future. When you've worked with so many vendors and have had success with the purchase orders and requests, there's a trust and a loyalty that forms between the both of you. The fourth is initiate feedback. So when I mean initiate feedback, I mean schedule time to meet with them monthly, quarterly, or even every 6 months. And the reason why you want this meeting is to provide some feedback, some recommendations. This is something I'm still working on because it does take time for me to meet with my vendors. I have so many that it's difficult for me to schedule time, but I do want to work on this because it's important to provide any type of customer service feedback to your vendors and also recommendations. Here are some questions that you can ask during these initial feedback meetings that you have. You can ask what's going well, what's not going well, what could be improved on both sides. And the reason why you want to build some sort of transparency and prevent any type of frustration that is happening within either the vendor, customer perspective. Okay, the last one in this segment is to celebrate and appreciate. This last action is just to build strong relationships and celebrate all of the success that you've had. Hey there, fellow business managers. Are you looking to save time and boost productivity in your role? Let me introduce you to my Syna store, where I've put together a collection of ready-to-use business templates designed specifically for people like us. These templates are practical, professional, and crafted with the day-to-day challenges of business management in mind. Check out my Syna store now at SynStore/life of a business manager. Thank you so much for supporting the podcast and hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. Give credit to where it's due. If a vendor helps you launch something or implement an equipment, just give them the credit. It's okay to say thank you and congratulate. These small moments really matter when it comes to a vendor because it deepens the loyalty, the trust, and makes vendors more likely to go the extra mile when you need them the most. From my experience, it's great to celebrate when a purchase order worked out, when the equipment is delivered on time, and when you've done your job with the help from your vendor. It's always good to just say thank you and show appreciation because this goes a long way. Okay, on to segment 3, which is interesting. What vendor red flags to look for and what you could do about them. Now, I just want to say that not all vendors have red flags. In every industry, there's always the good ones and the bad ones. So just be mindful. Now, what happens when things aren't going well? Let's just go over some red flags for you to look for when you're working with a new vendor. Here are some common red flags. Again, my opinion on what the red flags are in my experience are delay or no response time with no update. So if you don't get a response from a vendor for some time and you're having to chase them down, to me, that's a red flag because the vendor is trying to sell you something and you're the customer. So they should be the ones actually chasing you down. The next one is repeated errors in communication of any delivery or service. So when I say repeated errors, I mean either they sent you the wrong tracking information, they don't know where the equipment is, it hasn't been implemented or checked by biomed. So any errors in regards to the actual delivery or the service of the equipment, I think is a red flag because as a vendor, you should probably know where your equipments are. Unable to accept feedback or unclear accountability. This one's really important. So I have had some vendors that honestly didn't want any feedback, and I have had ones that didn't take accountability, but I've had polar opposites as well, where, they ask me questions and I provide feedback on what worked, what didn't work, what we could do better. There's always the lessons learned for every transactions that you do with the vendor. The next one is when a vendor's always finger pointing or blaming others when issue arise. That shows me you haven't taken accountability of the problem and you also haven't provided a solution on how to fix the problem. So the finger pointing, the blaming, I'm not a big fan of, and I don't think it works out in the professional industry. So this is a red flag for me. The The next one is lack of genuineness. So if you're not being authentic or sincere, that's a red flag because I would rather work with someone who's honest with me. I understand that they have to sell you an equipment or sell you anything. I just want it to be more genuine and not so car salesman. The next one is unable to read the room. I have been in meetings with vendors where literally they're unable to read the room and read that the customer side is not happy with the service. They need to actually provide some sort of support or know when to say and when to not say something during meetings. Okay, now that we reviewed all the common red flags, here's what you can do if you come across any of the red flags. The first thing, request a meeting to talk to the vendor about your concern. The second is write an email expressing your concern. And the third is offer a chance to fix it, but be specific about what actually needs to be changed. I think communication is key. If you have a problem with the vendor, just talk to them, meet with them, and figure out if you can come up with a solution. If you can't come up with a solution and the improvement doesn't happen, escalate and get the vendor replaced. Either contact their senior leadership and just let them know it's not working out and you need someone else. We're all human here, so we all make mistakes. It's how we handle the situation afterwards. I do believe in second chances as well. Sometimes it's difficult to see exactly how you interact with the person, but some people do change. As a reminder, your role as a business manager isn't to be liked by the vendor. Your role is to protect your operations and serve your customers, such as the departments that you support. Remember that at the end of the day, you're there to do a job and do it appropriately. The organization comes first. These strong relationships don't mean anything if you are not succeeding in your role. Okay, everyone, let's recap the 5 key ways to build strong vendor relationship. The first one, set clear expectations early with your vendor. Don't assume anything. Second, communicate like a partner, not a customer. Treat them like a part of your team. The third is always stay consistent but be flexible. Reliability builds trust. The fourth is initiate feedback. Keep the conversations going. The fifth is to celebrate and appreciate. Providing any appreciation matters and goes a long way. Remember, your vendors are part of your business environment. If you treat those relationships with clarity, consistency, and respect, they'll return the favor. Okay, everyone. So that is all for how to build strong relationships that last. Thanks again for tuning in to Life of a Business Manager podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with anyone you know who works with external partners or supply chain. If this episode helped you understand why vendor relationship is so important to the success of a business manager, considering following the show, leaving a review, or sharing it with someone exploring a career in business management. And if you have any questions about my role as a business manager or any suggestions for future topics or stories of your own day-to-day as a business manager, feel free to email me in the show notes below. As always, thank you so much for listening, and don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, bye everyone. Hi, everyone. Just a reminder, the content provided in our podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as professional advice. Listeners are encouraged to consult with appropriate professionals before making any business decisions based on the information provided in the podcast. We do not endorse any products or services mentioned unless stated in any of our episodes. Thank you for listening.